Neyse, biraz da video tercih. Hey YouTubers, this is Ishtiaq with you once again. When I started making these videos, I was in Philadelphia, and there has been a huge gap between then and now. I believe the last video I made was weeks, if not months ago. I am in Raleigh, North Carolina now. I moved because of my job, and since this is sort of like a reboot, I was thinking instead of having it like a how-to video like I used to do before, where I took my friends' photos and tried to work on them, enhance them, talk about tips and tricks, I figured let's just make it about what I'm doing, my everyday growth as a photographer. So with that in mind, in this episode we're going to be talking about film cameras, and in particular you can see here, I hope, the Mamiya RB67 camera. I absolutely love this one, and I want to talk about this camera and the various things that go with having this new camera and owning this camera, using this camera, and also a little bit about how I got to get this camera. So once I came here in Raleigh, I went to a nearby camera store to get my sensor cleaned. There were lots of dust and I wanted to get it cleaned, and they offered me a free cleaning. It was good, but on my way out I saw this camera, and it actually was almost like love in first sight, because I had to get it. The moment I saw it, I had to get it. So I got it. It had this smaller lens, the 90mm lens attached to it, but I got it with the portrait lens initially, the 250mm, and then a couple of days later I went back and I got the 90mm as well. So let's talk about this a little bit. So this is a medium format camera, which is why it's big and bulky like it is, and it is huge, it is heavy. I don't know, if it weighs about 8 pounds or more, so if you want to use it, you better have it on a tripod, because otherwise you will probably get some shake. So that's the first thing about this one. The second thing is I had to go back to film, and it was good for me because I initially started off taking photos in film, and then there was like a 5-year gap because of my camera broke and I didn't have the money to buy another one. So, and by the time I got back to it, it was all digital. And it was good to go back to film, because this, I believe you've heard from everybody else as well, is shooting in film makes you more deliberate. It makes you think, because anytime you click, it's $1. And if I give you this challenge that you are gonna have to pay $1 for every time you snap a photo, you will definitely put in more thought, and you're not gonna go out and shooting in bursts. And if you have a photographer next to you, it wouldn't feel as if it wouldn't feel as if there's someone firing a machine gun or something, like grrr, all the photos. No, you will think, you will set up your photo, you'll observe the light, and then you take photos. And that's what I see myself doing more. I liked that part of it, and initially when I was taking photos, I was into landscapes, because I took so much time setting up my photo that my subject actually got very angry. My subject in this case being my wife. So I was like, okay, mountains don't move, the moon doesn't move as much, so I can take photos of landscape. But now it's come to a point that I really want to go back to spending a little more time about my photos. So there's that, there's the backdrop. Now on to this camera. As I said, it's a medium format camera, and the 6.7 that you see on the front of it, that means it's a 6:7 negative. So it's a huge one. Whenever we get people talking about crop sensors and the full frame cameras, there's a huge argument going on in the digital photography area, and everyone's bragging about their camera, or everyone's arguing that you have to have full frame, or you can do this and that with crop sensor and whatnot. Well, a full frame is what, 24 by 36 millimeter. This is a 6 centimeter by 7 centimeter. It's a huge negative, and I'll show you the back in a second, and you'll realize that you get so much information there. and that's why you realize that, which is why, you know, medium format is used so much in studio or fashion, or whoever needs to really blow up the photo into a huge print. That's where medium format comes in. There are the 645, which is 6 centimeters by 4.5 centimeters, and this one is the 6 by 7, so it's an even bigger one. And as I said, absolutely use it with a tripod. And something I learned, and I'm sharing my experience, as I said, something I learned about this one is that this is a waist level viewfinder that I have. So I don't have a prism, and you can buy those separately, where you have a prism which reflects the view that you see here, so that you can use it as if you'd be using your digital camera. So you can hold it up, you can look through, but in this case you look down. And I'm not a very tall person, and I tried taking photos of a model who was actually very tall, and I realized that for all the gear that I have, probably the most vital one, especially when you're taking photos with a waist level viewfinder, is a step stool. So get something like that if you want to use a camera like this, unless you invest in a prism, which solves the problem. Now, talking about this, this is a completely, I got the RB, not the RZ, so that's the version that's after this one. This one does not have anything. It's a completely manual camera, not even metering, so you have to do everything on your own. There are a couple of ways that you can get by. You can buy a light meter, which is actually very expensive, so I didn't go that route. And also, if you're taking if you have experience shooting film, you know that after a while you can look at the sun and the weather and say, yeah, this is kind of the exposure that I would need. So you'll be right in the ballpark. If you're shooting, you know, digital, not so much. You only look at the ISO, or you know, you pick your aperture based on the kind of look that you want. So you're not looking at exposure, because everything else is kind of set on you know, automatically with the camera. So that's something that you really need to do. So how can you get by without, you know, acquiring or investing more? I did not go for a light meter. There is, I think, there's an app called, I think the app is called Light Meter, or you can take a photo with a digital camera if you want. You'll get some idea about the exposure, and all you need to do is plug in those settings here. And talking about the lens, when we talk about crop sensor versus full frame, we know that there is something called a crop factor, right? That if you have a 50mm film, 50mm lens, I'm sorry, a 50mm lens on a crop body, you know that for Nikon you multiply that by 1.5, which is to say that, okay, it's equivalent to, if it's a 50mm on a crop body, it's equivalent to 75, sorry, if it's a 50mm in a full frame, it's equivalent to 75mm on a crop body. In case of medium format, it's actually the opposite. So in terms of APS-C sensors and full frame sensors, you're going up, but in terms of medium format and full frame, so you're actually coming from up to down. So here, there's actually a crop factor that actually halves the value. So the 90mm that I have here on this lens, this body, this lens is almost equivalent to a normal lens, the 50mm, and the 250mm that I have, that's also, you know, roughly equivalent to 135mm. So the, you know, a normal lens and a portrait lens, based on the you know, the focus you know, that we use. Now there's that. So let me show you how this camera works. And as I said, this is a completely manual camera. So first of all, you know, looking from the front, let's see, let me show you the top view. So here you have your shutter, and you can set the shutter to, you know, the time, and 1, 2, and it goes all the way up to 400. And the one right behind that is your aperture, and from 3.8 we can go all the way up to 32 actually on this 90mm. And if you want to replace a lens, and this is the most important thing, these are actually very modular cameras, so every part of this thing you can take out, and it's really fun. If you haven't used these, try it out. It's really fun. But let me show you how, you know, the most important operating parts, and then I'll go into those things. So here you have the lens. If you want to take out the lens, there's this red dot and a red line, so you just kind of loosen it. Oops. So you loosen it and it'll come out. I'll It's kind of stuck tight. I think I tightened it too much. This is embarrassing, but I'll get to it. I'll show it to you. Now, there's that, and oh, here's what I wanted to show you. So you'll see a little insert here for cable if you want to use a flash, and if you want to sync it, that's the cable you use. And this is different from a digital camera, because in those you attach the sync cable to the body because it's all automatic, but here it's not. It's whenever you're doing something, you are actually working with the lens, not the body. Now, to open this, I believe you'll be able to see it, but to open it, you just lift it up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is how it looks. So, well, you'll probably see my ceiling through here, but this is how it is. And when you're taking a photo, you're looking down, and let's see, there's that magnifying little bit, the magnifying glass that I just stuck back. So that's how it looks now. When you're taking your photo, you're looking down through this one, and that's why it's called a waist level viewfinder, because it's usually around your waist and you're looking down at it and doing your focusing. Now, how do you do the focusing? Well, there's this knob and there's this knob. They're both the same, so you move one, the other moves, and this is again something very cool if you haven't used film camera before. So as you move it, you see the bellow kind of extending. So that's what helps you do the focusing. And this is really good. And once you are at a point where you need to fine-tune your focus, as I mentioned, there is a little magnifying glass inside, so you can just take that out, and there you go. So I really strongly suggest that, well, you look through here and you focus, and that's exactly what I'm doing now, and there I am. Now, you would be surprised how easy and accurate it is to focus manually. It's kind of a fear. It's not something people do. It's not what most people are used to, but hey, people did this for many decades and it worked fine. There's a reason why. It's really easy, and the way it's set up, there's a little prism inside, and it'll all align. If you're out of focus, if you're not focused accurately, it will show you. So that's a very important thing. Now, let me put that back, and of course it's all mechanical, so my magnifying glass has a tendency to pop back up, but well, it's behaving now, thankfully. It's good. So just pulling it all and putting it back in. Now this thing, if you want to take it out and if you want to use a prism focus or something, well, the way to do it is, and this is something also that happens by accident a lot when you're carrying it, you might get this thing pushed out, and if it's pushed out, this thing will come off. And I had a friend of mine carry it, and it was just falling down, and we were wondering, hey, what's happened? And then I went back and realized, oh, it's happening because you see these little locks here that came out. So there's that. So we want to put this one back and put the logo back in, and that's it. It's done. There are a couple of little hooks here to have it suspended. I don't have that. Now, with all of that done, the question is, where's the shutter? Well, see this little thing here? That's the shutter. You press it and it'll work. Now, something to know here, something that I learned through trial and error, is that this thing is actually like a knob, and you can twist it like a knob, and as you do it, you can either have the shutter locked or released. So this is locked and this is released. Now it is released, I'm pressing, but nothing's happening. Why? That brings us to something very interesting. Oh, and before I go into that part, one last thing about the viewfinder. The viewfinder is actually inverted. And by inverted, I mean if you have it set like this, as you move the camera to the left, it'll appear as if you're moving to the right when you're looking through the viewfinder. So that's something to know. And it takes a little bit of getting used to. Alright, so when you want to take photos, and you see this here, this is how you rewind the shutter. It's not going anywhere because the shutter has been, rewound. Well, there's my little cat, Bella. Baba. Baba. Alright. Okay, you're in my video. Can you please give me some space? Well, she's gonna walk around. Okay, now, Mama. So what these cameras have is called a dark slide, and this dark slide is here so that you don't accidentally expose a film. So as you take it out, if you press this shutter, there it is. And now once it's done, you do this to rewind the shutter. But there's something else. If you have been taking film photos, you are kind of used to doing it manually. Mama, alright, she wants to be in the video. Pardon, please. Now, this is a common mistake that I made, that people make, and I actually made it a couple of times as well. I only, just took care of the shutter, but you actually have to rewind the film as well. Oh, Mama, belly. Okay. Alright, she'll come back. Alright, so if you have been shooting film cameras, you know that once you take a photo, you do this, and that's it. You're ready to take another snap if you have been doing it. But with these cameras, you have to do it for the shutter and the film separately. And you'll know why. The reason is that this back here, it is actually, it can be detached. And because it's a detachable back, you can have one back with a black and white camera, you can have one film, you can have one back with color film and whatnot. So it can be very useful. And something else people do is you could have a Polaroid back, and you can take a test shot with the Polaroid so that you know about the exposure. And now once everything is set, you can bring back your actual film and take the photo. Now in here, what gets loaded is a 120mm film. So, and of course for a RB67 you get 10 exposures. If you shoot with 645, I believe you get 12 exposures instead of 10. So that's a little more cost effective for you. Now, it's, as you see in the name, the RB, well, the 67 we know stands for 6cm by 7cm size of negative. The RB actually stands for rotatable back, and that's the coolest thing about this camera. Because it's such a heavy beast, it'll be very difficult if you ever had to turn the camera all the way, if in your studio or outside, wherever. So a solution to that is to rotate the back, and that's amazing. So this is where we were in the landscape orientation, and this is where we are in portrait orientation. And a marker for that is there's a little square here. So this is what says, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but this is what a portrait orientation looks like. And once you rotate this, here's what the landscape orientation looks like. Alright, so with that, we come to the part where you have to work with the negatives. And I'll make a separate video where I load a negative, because I have a few negatives, and I want to talk separately about the negatives and the choice of which one you use and when, and I'll show that to you separately. But another thing here is, whenever you buy a negative, say you have a body here, a roll of film here, and you forget which one, well, for you to know, here's this little area. So you take the roll of film out of the packet, you put, you load the film, and then you take out the flap from the packet, which has the name of the film, whether it's black and white, and also the ISO of it. You take that, you slide it in here. That's a fantastic way to remember what kind of a film you have, what negative, because of course, whether you're shooting with black and white or color will immensely affect your composition and your exposure and everything. Now there's that, and of course, as I said, this is a very modular camera, so you can take this out as well. There's a little lock here, this sliding thing, that's the lock. You take that out, and here's this. Look at this sensor. This is such a huge size, and I was talking about crop sensors and full frame sensors in digital cameras, and there have been so many arguments, and I looked at that and I'm like, okay, I cannot at all afford to go to the higher levels with a digital camera, so let's not even go there. Let's not get tangled in a fight that I can never win, and instead let me try and go back to something that'll kind of force me to be a better photographer. And with this, I have a huge negative. I don't have any excuses. Alright, so I finished the video, and then I went back. I realized that I ran over the 20-minute limit, and that's why part of the video didn't go through. Then I started doing it again, and then the battery died. So here's a new video in a third attempt. So we were talking about how you cannot have a sensor size to be a complaining point if you have a medium format camera like that. So now let's go ahead and take a look at that. So to do that, there's here something that's called a lock, conveniently. So you open that, and here it all comes out. So this is a back, it's a removable back, and also, by the way, you can remove the lens. I just had it too tight, so in the interim I tried to loosen it. So once you do that, once you have all three, you know, the red arrow and the two red dots aligned, excuse me, the lens comes out, and you can of course then go ahead and load a different lens. Very conveniently you have the red and green dots and whatnot. So let me do that. Let me just have it, and you don't need to rotate the lens. You put the lens in, and then you rotate this little circular dial that you have here, and there it's locked. And if you're shooting with this, you know, you can pop this out, sort of, you know, using it as a hood. Now, so yes, so once you have it all set in, this is big, and people will often mistake it to be a film camera, as in, you know, a movie film camera. That's, you know, that's interesting. So yeah, that's the size of the sensor. So as you, oh, the other way around, sorry. And as you take the dark slide out, you see how big it is. And once you do it, you know, once you take the photo, it's gorgeous, it's wonderful. Now, excuse me. So on to this here. We are going to try and look at what happens when you press the shutter. This is something that I learned the hard way, by the way, the lock that I was talking about. So there's a white dot and an orange dot, and when the red dot of the shutter knob aligns with the orange, that means it's locked. If it's with the white, then that means it's unlocked. And I didn't know that, which is why I had a hard time, you know, once when I was outdoors, I was losing the sun, and I was freaking out, like, what happened? Why I'm pressing something, it's not going in, the shutter isn't working. I realized that as I was handling it, this kind of came loose. Alright, so now onto the shutter. So just keep an eye on this one, just through here, and you'll see, there we go, there it goes. And this is where you take the photo and you remember to wind it. Let me show you what happens. So as you do it, you see the cover coming down. And I hope now you realize that I only, you know, the shutter is only the one that I wound, not the film. So every time you do that, you'll have to do it as well. Now we have the film here, the back that we want to put back, and to do that, you know, just I spoke about a lock. Well, there's not one but two. So there's one lock and there's two locks. So you need to have the two out. And by the way, I just paused and switched out to the smaller lens so that it's not too heavy to move around. So, well, the idea is to just put it back in. You don't have to slide. That's a good thing. You know, a lot of people do that and end up with scuff marks. So you don't have to do that. You just put it back in. There's lock at the bottom and a lock in the top. Oops, this came out, but we now know how to fix it. So you just put it back in, push it in, there it stays there. Really no need to worry about these little things. And then the dark slide goes back. And of course, as I said, if you, or have I said it? I don't know. So you can take it back, take it out, and you can just keep it here very conveniently while you're taking photos, and you know, not one photo after another. But if you are ever taking the back out, make sure that you have the dark slide in, because otherwise you're going to lose an exposure. So there's that. And also something to keep in mind is this little screw here. As I said, it's very heavy, and you would want to use this camera in a studio or wherever you are, but on a tripod. And to do that, make sure that you have this little screw here. That's the universal adapter that helps the tripod go in. Mine actually didn't have it at the beginning, but the store guys were good enough to look for it, and then they found something and put it in here. And also, when you unscrew this camera, a lot of times this actually gets loose and stays on the tripod, and I was having trouble this evening putting in that camera, the recorder camera, and I was wondering why isn't it going in all the way, and then I looked and realized this came out and got stuck in the tripod screw. So there's that. So yeah, the rotatable back, it's a wonderful thing. And so a few things that you're gonna have to get used to is first of all, when you're viewing through it, the mirroring, when you are composing with it, it is a completely different world, because especially with a 6x7, it's almost square, and if you're used to the aspect ratios of other cameras, that's going to take some getting used to. There's a lot of composition tips and techniques and everything that go with the other style that we are used to, because we've been around that for so long, but not in this case. So it takes a bit of training there. Be patient. Loading the film is something I'll cover in a different video, and I'll definitely walk you through some of the first photos that I took and my experiences. But overall, I can say that I have absolutely loved every moment of having this camera, and that's why I was very excited to share my experience with you. I have taken photos with this, and I have taken photos with this, the 250 and the 90. I think between these two I have the wide and the zoom, the long, both covered. It's wonderful. Actually, just one last thing, let me have you take a quick look inside this. It wouldn't be complete without that. So when you're doing this, oh, actually something I forgot as well, I'm going to mention here. So there's this little knob thingy here. There are lots of knobs around this camera. As you pull it, the back will come out. There you go. And this is where you load the film. So you just wrap around. I wouldn't make this video any longer than it already is. So I'll show you how to load a film in a future video. So I put this back in. It doesn't automatically close, so you have to push it in here. And also I mentioned that when you are rewinding, you have to rewind both the shutter and the film, but a lot of times you'll find that it's stuck right here. It's not going all the way, and the reason why is that there's something here. There's a little lock as well. It's an arrow, so you have to do this once, then it's gonna go. So do this once, you do this, take your photo, do this, do it, and go all the way. So that's the way it is. It's very mechanical. It's almost like driving a stick shift. You have to be very deliberate. It's a wonderful thing. I hope you like this video. I will be making follow-up videos of it, going through other stuff. Thank you so much for watching this very long video.